This is Radiant Voices Media.
Hey there, and welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast, the podcast for the curious minds, the dreamers, and the high achievers. Here we dive into self-help, wellness, and mindset shifts that help you become your best self. Let's get into it. Hey there, and welcome to another episode. Today I'm joined by Ruby Fagan-Schmidt, a business mindset and marketing coach who helps entrepreneurs grow their online presence, build real authority, and actually convert through social media. She has worked across so many different parts of the online business world, from influencer, head of product, marketing strategist, and now she coaches helping business owners create growth that actually sticks. Today, we're diving into business, into mindset, into the truth about social media, and the strategies that genuinely work right now to earn you sales, to earn you followers, and to earn you trust in your business. So, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, team, quick shout out to today's sponsor because they've genuinely been a game changer for me personally, and that is YouFoods. So here's the thing, no matter what your goals are, fat loss, muscle building, training for something big, or honestly just trying to survive a busy week, YouFoods has meals that actually taste amazing. And I'm not talking about those sad frozen meals that taste like fake ingredients and disappoint you every single time. These meals taste fresh, they taste real, and they don't feel like you're on a meal plan at all. I literally look forward to them. But the real reason that I'm obsessed personally is time. My time is everything, and saving literally 3 to 5 hours a week from grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning the kitchen, that honestly is priceless to me. Those hours go back into my training. They go back into this podcast, into the other podcasts that I produce, and just my sanity as well. So if you've been thinking about giving pre-made meals a go, or you just want to make your life so much easier, use my link in the show notes and you'll get a free box of meals to try out. Seriously, try it. If you're anything like me, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time, Ruby. This means a lot to me. I think the listener right now is going to probably get a lot out of what we talk about today. So I'm super excited, but thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I was saying before, it's nice to be on the other side of the mic.
Yeah.
So excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. But Ruby, the first thing that I like to ask most of my guests here on the podcast is if the listener right now had an autobiography in front of them and it was your autobiography, what is some maybe cliff notes that they would find in that biography, basically?
Gosh, I was thinking about this and I was like, it would be so full.
Okay. Well, that's good, isn't it?
It is. I feel like I've always been in some sort of entrepreneurship role. Ever since I was 5, I was selling flowers outside our house, and Mum always joked that I was always destined to do something in business, even though we had no one owning a business in my family. So it's always sort of been in me, and I've always felt different in a way that I was never going to have a traditional job. All through high school, when everyone was studying to become a doctor or a lawyer or get into some sort of university degree, I never really knew what it was that I wanted to do. But I knew that I was going to be successful. I knew that I wanted to do something for myself, and I had that drive. I just had no idea what I was going to be doing. So autobiography, I've tried a lot of things. I've done a lot of things, always in the space of entrepreneurship or business or coaching. And I suppose that's where I've ended up today is as a result of my history, my experience, all my lessons, and my education.
Right. Wow. And I find that super interesting because I think that's a common story, but it's not a common story. Like, I think some people from a young age, they are, destined for something more and they know that they want something more. But that's something that I find interesting because in high school and elementary school, you don't teach business. You don't teach that side of things, right?
Yeah.
So for someone like you that knew that you wanted more, I find that's quite interesting because you're not exposed to something like that at that end. Did you feel like something was lacking at that point through school, or what was your thought process back then?
Absolutely, because when I was in school, I think I grew up in the time of MySpace, I think it was, like where you have your top 5 friends and a music in the background. And in year 12, everyone was starting to get Facebook. So social media was just not a thing. And I think now it's so easy to run a business online because you basically get a whole platform for free that you can advertise for free, get customers for free. And I think it's just insane that not more people are doing it, really. But back then, you didn't really have those options. So when I left school, I had the best parents, so supportive. They probably were like, what on earth are you going to do with your life? But they would support me with whatever I wanted to choose. So I decided when I left school, I wanted to start a fashion store. And I was so set on starting a fashion shop in Stirling, which is quite a bougie, high-end area. So it would have cost quite a bit to do. And Dad came to me and he said, look, if you go to TAFE and you do a small business course, I will support you through this business. And I was like, whoa, like I'm 19 here. Like what's going on? So I went to TAFE, did the business course and really fell in love with learning, which I didn't really like. I did all right in high school, but I sort of did all the subjects that got scaled down. So I think my TR was about 75 or 80 because of the scaling back. And I did nutrition and early child studies, like nothing too academic. But doing this TAFE course made me realize that I loved learning around business. So I put a hold on that business idea and I ended up going to university to study business and marketing, which I suppose helped me get where I am today. But I was so grateful to have that support from my family, even though they were probably like, what on earth is she doing? Like 19, thinking that she's going to just have this successful business from the get-go. But yeah, I can't even remember what the question was. We've sort of got
no, that's awesome. I think that's awesome. Like, because it sounds like things weren't rigid and linear, right? And I think that's what I like to hear because I find it so fascinating. People who are in a position like you who, have gone through this whole experience in business, like it just never seems to be linear. And I think like when you go through the whole uni path, it is a linear stage, right? And I just find the concept interesting because these days I find you don't necessarily need to go through that path anymore. And I think less and less people are going through that path. They're taking this, gap year, or I'm not going to go to uni. I'm going to do this and that because there's so much more opportunity, like you were saying, with social media, with just the online space these days. I think they say, I'm a millennial as well. Like we're the last ones that were before social media, but then we're also during social media as well. So we can kind of see the both sides of it. Yeah. Maybe go back to, when you were coming out of those courses, what was kind of the first adventure that you went on, business and entrepreneur side of things?
Yeah, so whilst I was studying uni, I also decided that it would be fun to study my personal training course. So I was doing both at the same time, and I sort of looked at it as, hey, I'm going to do PT to get me through university. It was something that I enjoyed doing. I think in school I did all school sports, but I was never really good at sport. And so when I found the gym, it was something that I could do, and I felt good about myself because I was feeling strong and I was feeling fit, and I sort of found a bit of a community there. And I loved nutrition. Like nutrition was something, and wellness, that I always had such a passion for. So I studied that and became a PT. And this was sort of back in the day where social media, again, wasn't very big. But I just happened to started posting those good old grainy photos, a selfie holding a supplement container, and ended up being very lucky and got some sponsorships back in the day, which I suppose was a little bit new. Like no one really was doing it. So I grew my social media. I ended up doing fitness competitions. So I did that for 2 years in a row and built my following quite rapidly, which other gyms and business owners in the space reached out to me and said, hey, would you mind managing ours or helping me with mine? And I was kind of like, oh, hold on. At that time I was doing nutrition coaching as well. So I'd built up that business. And And I decided to give it a go. You know, my background in university was marketing. I'd finished at that point, and I had, I suppose, the experience of growing my social media accounts, that I started to manage some gyms, and very luckily a coach who was at the time one of the leading female entrepreneur coaches in the world. So managed hers, and then that sort of got me into the business coaching space, as a quick story there. But yeah, I was sort of, I don't want to say I was lucky, because I definitely worked hard. I definitely wasn't handed everything. But I think what I always believed in myself was, if you think positive things will happen. I know that sounds really lame and really fluffy, but ever since a young age, I've just always had that mentality that you need to put yourself out there. You need to be the one that is creating opportunities for yourself in order to get anywhere. No one's going to help you. No one's going to pass it to you on a silver platter. You need to be the one that takes action, and action is when things happen. So that's sort of, how I ventured from being a coach, owning a few businesses, and then moving into the business coaching space, with this amazing opportunity that I learnt a lot from.
Right. And I love that, because it sounds like, you took opportunity when it came. And like you were saying, like, you do also, in a sense, have to. I think some people might be waiting for opportunity to happen to them. But like you were saying, you do have to be optimistic and make opportunity at times, and then jump on it when it comes. So, I think for the person listening right now, hopefully they can take that away out of everything else today, because I think that's super key. Like, one thing that I hear commonly, whether it be in the fitness space or whether it be, the entrepreneur space, I've had a few other business owners on the podcast, and they've said something similar, that sometimes things just kind of fell in place, but a lot of the times you had to do the behind the scenes work for those things to fall into place. And I think this day and age too, people are looking for the easy route. And that's difficult, because I don't know that there is an easy route anymore. Like, everybody is after the same thing. So you kind of have to go after it in a different way, in a sense. All right, let's talk about supplements that actually earn a spot in my routine. Not hype, just results. I love the Tropica matcha because I love clean energy without the crash. But also I like how this matcha is smooth, it's not bitter, and I genuinely look forward to having it every day. There's also the pineapple creatine. Creatine isn't just for muscle performance, you guys. There is more research coming out about how it supports mental clarity, mood, etc., etc. If you train, think, move, breathe, you should be taking creatine, in my opinion. At nighttime, I also love their beauty custard. It legit tastes like dessert and supports recovery while I sleep. It is collagen, so it's great for the skin, the hair, joints, longevity. Both men and women, everybody should be taking collagen. You guys can use my code JORDSDAY10 at checkout to save yourself some money. That's JORDZDAY10 at checkout. JORDSDAY10. Thank you, everybody. If you go back to maybe the beginning of the whole social media space, because it looked very different back then to what it is now, what were you doing back then when it comes to, let's say, marketing, the social media that you were using? Like, how were you using it back then? And then we can compare it to now a bit later.
It's funny because I've always been on Instagram. That's sort of where my space has always been. And that's what I specialize in, is helping other business owners get clients using Instagram. And the things that I was doing back then, like, yes, things have changed. Yes, strategies have improved, trends have come and gone, but the basics are still there. And this is something that I always come back to. I think in business and in marketing, we overcomplicate things and we try to always jump on the new trend or implement a new strategy or launch a new offer or do something because somebody else is doing something. But if you keep it simple and you build the foundations, you will get to where you want to go. You just need to be consistent and keep ticking those boxes. So I suppose what I was doing back then was building a personal brand and really sharing my life online in a way that I felt comfortable to. I think people get a little bit nervous when it's like you need to share your life, but you can actually choose what you want to share. You don't have to share, I choose to share my child, but if you've got a child and that's not something that you want to share, that's absolutely fine. You can curate your life online. But back then, building a personal brand was so important, and I still stand by that today. I think the businesses, especially in small business, that build their personal brand and bring a human element to their social media, they're the ones that are going to get clients and customers, because people buy from people. People buy from people they like, and they want to buy into a lifestyle that you have. So if you can get good at creating content that showcases your life and takes people on a journey and makes content feel relatable to your audience, then you're going to get your business to a point that you're wanting to be. I think probably in maybe 5 years after I started business was a time where you saw all those business coaches and they were posting the fancy cars and they were in the huge mansions, and that was a bit of a trend. And that came and went so quickly because people were just like, yeah, cool, but that's like not relatable at all. Like, I don't have a mansion. I don't have a Ferrari behind me. Like who are you and what am I going to learn from you? So if you can post things that feel relatable and share your journey and share your story, even your like fuck ups, I don't know if I can say.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Yeah.
But even your fuck ups, like if you're taking people on that journey, people are like, oh my gosh, yes, like she's a real person. She goes through these things. She wasn't given this business on a silver platter, because we know that that's just so unheard of, or it's very, very rare. But building a personal brand was so important back when I started, and it still is today.
Yeah. And I guess you want to be personable, like you were saying, like that's what a personal brand is. Like I love that, because I think too, when I scroll through and I look through the people that I follow, like you want connection, you want to be able to feel like you know somebody in a sense. I've met a few people like through the podcast that I followed interstate, and I've met them in person, and I'm like, oh, like you're actually similar to how you were online. And I think that's just a testament to the personal brand that they've built, because they're not pretending as well. And you can kind of see, again, what they choose for you to see, but you can see kind of their character and all of that. And I think that's what I look for. If I think through the people that I follow, it's for character, and it's for just kind of people to show me a bit more than like a picture of, like you're saying, a fancy car, this and that, because that's not personal to me. I don't really care about that kind of stuff.
I don't care that you've got a fancy car.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So I love that, really. I mean, things like you were saying, they haven't changed as much than building a personal brand, but where do you think the space has changed when it comes to competition? And because there's so many more social media platforms out there these days, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, all of this kind of stuff. Like, do you think there is an area for all of them? Do you think one of them's better than the other? What do you, and what's your experience with all of that?
Yeah, so I suppose I mentioned before, like I've really honed in on Instagram, because that's where my platform is. Instagram and podcasts are where they're the only two places you can really find me. If you message me on Facebook, I probably wouldn't reply, because I just would not open my messages. But I do think that all of these platforms have come obviously in over time, and they all do play an important role in where they sort of fit in the funnel. I don't think as a business owner we need to be on them all. I think we need to really understand the capacity that we've got and the team and the resources that we've got available. I do think that TikTok is an excellent social media channel to be on, but I just don't have the capacity to create multiple videos a day for my business, and my funnel looks very different. I've built it in a different way. TikTok, I think, is a fantastic top of funnel strategy. So it generates a lot of reach. It's very easy. Well, it's a lot easier to go viral. It's a great opportunity to generate new leads. But I don't feel like, and everyone's going to have a different opinion on this, but I don't feel like it converts the same way that Instagram, the way that I use it, converts in terms of a full funnel. So I think that that's important to note, is if you do have a TikTok account, we all know that if you post a video really promoting a product, it probably doesn't really sit well with the TikTok community, because they love the raw, opinion-focused daily vlogs, like very, very relatable content, which is fantastic top of funnel content, but we need to funnel them somewhere. And I feel like Instagram kind of does everything, and that's why I've honed in and specialized in Instagram, and I help other business owners on Instagram because I do feel like it's one space that you can do it all.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, like when I think of TikTok, I don't think of business. Like I don't think of a product or something like that. Like you were saying, I think of like a cool video of somebody's day or maybe like a funny video or something. Like that's what I think of TikTok as. So yeah, I find that interesting. Like, yeah, like you were saying, you might get a lot more reach out of TikTok, but I think too, sometimes views and reach doesn't always equate maybe to, you know, somebody following you or somebody like signing up for something.
You're speaking my language there.
Yeah, like
that's
in my experience at least. It's like, oh, well, I love your whole like resources. Find your like use the resources that you have. So maybe like if we stick to that, if somebody out there is maybe starting something, they have something, but they really only are doing it by themselves. Maybe they have help, you know, from one other person or whatever. Where do you think they should focus their resources when it comes to social media? Because again, like you don't want to be on too many, right? And if they stuck to Instagram, what kind of things on Instagram do they need to really hone in on, would you say?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really important to understand. I always ask my clients this is, what does your funnel look like? What does your personal or your business funnel look like? How are you attracting new leads? How are you generating new followers? How are you then nurturing them and building your community? And then how are you converting them? And if you can answer that question, that's such a great start. But most people don't know. They'll just post, they'll throw spaghetti at the wall and hope something will stick. And then they might post an offer and they get upset that nothing's selling. And it's important that we actually look at our account and look at our content to actually fit in this funnel. So my funnel, I'll give an example of what my funnel looks like. It doesn't have to look this way. And this is sort of how I've built it out. But I get a lot of my followers from my podcast. So the podcast is very much top of funnel. Wasn't always that way. In the early days, I got my followers through posting content on Instagram, collaborations, even in-person collaborations. I did a bit of outreach, but not in like a, hey, follow me. Like it was more so, I have more of a gentle outreach where you're connecting with genuine people for genuine reasons. You're not just going, out to everyone. And not cold DMing them. So there's just a very natural way of doing that. And I do feel like in the early days it is harder to grow. So you do need to be on the front end and being a bit more of a hunter versus a gatherer, which you sort of turn into once your social media starts following. Low cost meta ads. So spending $5-10 a day on some awareness ads that can really help to grow your following. Reels, carousels, just really posting content that the purpose is to generate more reach. So there's some strategy. Oh, and SEO. I think SEO is really, especially nowadays on social media, SEO is just gone. You need to be making sure that you're using your keywords. So that would be my top of funnel, is the podcast and then all of that content and strategies when it comes to Instagram itself. Middle of funnel, which is where you need to focus on nurturing your community, showing that you're an expert, you're the go-to in your space. You're really building and sharing more of that personal brand. You're building community, you're building what I would call momentum. So people see that you're consistent. And if you're consistent, they will see you as a consistent person to rely on. Whereas if you're inconsistent, if you think about anyone, even in your life, if you've got an inconsistent friend, you probably wouldn't go to them with your problems. So you need to be consistent because people do realize that. I found that doing workshops, online workshops, works really well for this stage for my business. It just builds trust so much quicker than any other stage. But doing things like Instagram lives can work well. Podcasts can fit really well into this area. Something a little bit more long form where people can really get to know you. I know Substack is going really well at the moment. I don't know the exact figures, but within the last 3 to 6 months, it's just skyrocketed. So people are coming back to that blogging. They're really wanting that in-person, longer form content to consume. You could have YouTube here as well, because that's obviously longer form content, but something that's going to build trust with your community as quickly as possible, especially if you're only online. We can't have sort of in-person workshops. We can't have, you can, but if you're just looking at Instagram. And then you've got your conversion. So how often are you promoting your offers? Do you even promote your offers? That's one thing that a lot of people don't. They just expect people are going to click on their website, which never happens. Posting social proof. People follow people. So if you're posting that social proof, they're going to move with those people. Doing things like conversion events. So the masterclasses that I spoke about, making sure that you are actually selling on them. Email marketing has insane conversion rates if you're using it. Making sure that you're posting on your stories. So Instagram stories is a great place to convert your audience. But really understanding Instagram and how it works as a funnel and making sure that you are creating content and following strategies that fit in every space.
What I got from that was like consistency and like using Instagram to its fullest. Like there's so many functions within Instagram. And I think like when I look through, because I find it fascinating looking through business profiles and stuff like that. And I think the successful ones are the ones that are doing what you mentioned. Like they're on stories, they're posting reels, maybe some information. Like people might not come and see you if you don't have like, I know this might be a bit selfish, but if you don't have something to offer, it sounds like, then, why should they follow you or work with you, So like, I understand you don't want to give out free content or whatnot, but like at the same time, I think it is key for people to actually like experience what they could get signing up with you at. And again, that's just kind of what I like when I scroll through business pages. That's kind of what I see is the successful ones are not just like the aesthetic ones. I mean, of course, sometimes those are the successful ones as well, but like I think they're the ones that have like that personable touch to it, and they have things on their feed and they're using it at all capacity. When it comes to short form content, like, reels versus pictures or carousels or whatnot, is there any differentiation between those kind of stuff when it comes to engagement or when it comes to what business owners need to really understand about that kind of stuff?
It will be different on everyone's account, and I really encourage you to test out what's working on your account and understand your insights. I think a lot of people don't spend enough time in their insights, and I'm not saying become obsessed with them because that can be quite unhealthy as well. But we were speaking earlier around going viral, and one thing that I would say is I'm not the coach that's going to make you go viral, but I will be the coach that will help you get sales. And understanding the metrics that matter in business is so important. Yes, we need reels and carousels to go somewhat viral to generate new followers, but I guarantee you that reel that went viral is not going to be the reel that gets you customers. So it's really important that we've got content that's primary goal is to generate followers that are aligned. So I think a lot of people, and this is something I see a lot of the time with clients that come to me, is they've got this account that's done really well from viral content. They've generated so many new followers, they're getting lots of reach. They basically just have to post something because they're funny and entertaining or relatable, and it goes viral. But they really struggle with actually making sales. And the reason for that is, well, it either could be that they're creating an audience that isn't their aligned audience, that has no connection with their offer, or they haven't really researched who that audience is and haven't created an offer that matches that. Or they are missing that massive middle part, which is the part where we really need to nurture them. We need to be creating awareness style content to make them aware that they've got a problem, or they're even in a space to be considering working with you. So that consideration content. But when it comes to, back to your question, the content that we're needing to post, reels can be great for generating reach, but what we've seen a massive movement in is carousels can also generate that reach as well. So it's really important that you have a look at your insights and understand which of your content is getting reach, which is getting profile views. I think that that's one that not a lot of people look at, but if you post a reel, for example, you can actually see how many people will click from the reel back to your profile. How many people are then clicking on your external links, which I think is really important because that shows that somebody's really interested in being like, oh, hey, I'm just going to see like, what do they offer? What's that next step? You can have a look at how much of that reel is seen to your followers versus non-followers. So when we understand this data and what the types of content that you post on your Instagram generate, we can then create a plan that's based on, hey, this is what we need to create if we're wanting to build our audience. This is what we want to be creating if we're wanting to increase our external link taps, because that's going to show conversion. So it's really important to understand your own personal data to then generate a plan to actually go out and build a funnel that's going to be finding people, nurturing them, and then converting them into customers.
I love that. Like, especially the whole like viral insight thing, because, I think, when was it? Maybe 6 months ago, I started a new Instagram profile for an account. And I remember what was it? I think it was a reel. I think like 60K views or something like that, but 0 followers, and that was like, I think that was a good testament to what you were just saying, that like, views don't always equate to followers or engagements or sales or anything like that, because I think back to what I go through reels, like I might like something, but I won't ever go onto their profile and follow them, So unless it's like super engaging or unless they have something that I find they have to offer, I guess. But very rarely, I think, do people do that really. When a new business owner comes to you, let's say that they're just starting out their business, let's say, they have everything, they have a good idea in set, they have good potential, and, they're doing good in sales or whatnot, but they want to reach more people. How would that business owner, I guess, grow and reach that audience?
Yeah. If they're wanting to grow quickly, I think that's probably something to really understand and ask yourself, like, why are you wanting to grow quickly? And what is quick to you? Like, is that 100 followers a week? Is that 1,000 followers a week? Like, it's going to look different for everyone, but also asking yourself why. I understand in ecom because the volume of sales you need is obviously a lot higher than a service-based business that perhaps you only need 5 clients a month to work with. But understanding what those numbers look like is the first thing that I would talk to them about. And then understand what the best strategy is going to be. So if you're in ecom, some UGC partnerships is usually a really good idea, because they can be cheaper. Sometimes you can get UGC partnerships for free, like just gifting product. And I've actually got a client that has done insanely well just from gifting some of her product, and her followers have just grown really quickly. She's very new in business. But I mentioned it before, doing some low cost awareness ads through Meta, because you can get targeted on those followers. So you actually know that, hey, my $5, $10, $15 a day is actually pushing my content out to people that I want it to go out to. And you can be really specific with what that content is. So instead of just posting a reel and letting the algorithm do its thing and hopefully find the right people, which, I don't know, 50-50, definitely still have that content there, because organic content can do really, really well. But if you've got the budget, I would recommend doing some low-cost awareness ads if you're wanting to grow quickly. Organic social media is definitely doable, but it's a lot harder these days. You might be one of those lucky people that it happens for, but I would say 9 times out of 10, it does take a while to grow. So having some of these other strategies where we collaborate with UGC creators or have some sort of partnerships, or even doing joint lives. I did a few of these when I was starting out, and that really helped to grow my following as well. So putting yourself out there, going on other podcasts, that's another great strategy. Doing collaborative lives, even doing things like, this is more on email lists, but doing an email list swap where you both send out a resource to each other's list. Like, there's so many great strategies that you as a business owner, if you don't have a big budget, can do. But yeah, just understanding what those numbers look like for you and not just comparing yourself to somebody else. I think a lot of business owners are like, oh, well, that business started out, and how on earth do they have 10,000 followers? I think they purchased their followers. Should I purchase my followers? I would say no, but I think we do, when we're starting out, compare ourselves to other businesses, and that's really important that you don't do that. Don't follow the accounts. Don't even let them. Just like stay in your lane. Focus on what you need to do.
Yeah. I'm very big on like, it's very hard these days to become an overnight success. Yeah. Even people that seem like they're an overnight success, it's the furthest thing, from an overnight success really. So, it like, you have to put in the work. Like, I think from everything that you've said right now, and thus far in the last 30 minutes, like if the person listening can take, again, another thing, there is some behind the scenes stuff that, it's not just luck really. Again, you kind of have to, maybe do email lists, maybe do this kind of stuff. And a lot more than what people might anticipate, like just posting a reel and hoping that it goes viral, basically. You hit something interesting that I found, the whole like, algorithm versus AI, like meta ads thing. When somebody is creating an ad, do you often get them to just let AI do its thing in Meta, or do you get them to create an ad and edit it and I guess figure out their targets themselves? What do you usually recommend there?
Great question. And you're going to hate me for saying this, but again, it comes back to testing. So sometimes I'll actually test both audiences. I'll let Meta to do its own thing, and I'll do a custom audience as well. Meta's great. Like, I think that the AI, the way that it sort of pushes it out to its own audiences, like, it actually is a great tool. And especially because ads can be really confusing as a business owner who perhaps technology isn't their bread and butter. So if you are starting out, I would really encourage you to understand the basics of meta ads. Don't just boost your posts, because you might get followers at the start, but you're going to hit a wall quite quickly where there's so many limitations to it. Also, the app charges you like an extra fee to boost. Whereas if you actually understand meta ads, you set up your pixel, which is super important to have that set up on your website, or your data set, as it's called now. You can hear my age there. But just understanding the basics so that you can use the tools that meta ads has in order to grow your audience. When we're running campaigns, it's also really cool because you can retarget people that have checked out your website, that are on your email list. Like, there's so much you can do. You don't need to do it all straight away. And I think that that's one really important thing to say, is don't feel like you need to do everything right away, but understand the basics and then build from there.
How do people use AI strategically when it comes to maybe creating content or creating an ad or whatever? What are some maybe 2 or 3 key tips that you often recommend or that you do when using AI?
Yeah, great question. And it's funny, Maddie and I recorded an episode yesterday, and
I listened to, I think it must not have been live, but I listened to an AI one recently of what you guys posted. So that's where this came from.
Well, this one was sort of a follow-up. We were doing our 2026 predictions, and oh my gosh, the recording was so bad. We're going to have to record the episode again. And it was such a good episode. But anyway, one thing that we were speaking about was where AI is going next year. And people are probably going to hear this before the episode is released now, because we need to record it. But I do feel like we need to make sure that as business owners, we are using AI, but we're also bringing a human element. And I think that a lot of business owners are getting too reliant on AI, that they just ask ChatGPT to write them a post and push it out, and they just leave it as it is. The way that I would be using it as a business owner moving forward is to generate ideas. If there's a trend going, ask ChatGPT to translate that trend for your business, but make sure that you bring some human element into it. So ChatGPT is almost like your assistant. They can do or whichever AI tool you're using, but they can do the groundwork, they can do the planning, they can pull together, what's working in a space and recreate content that have worked on other accounts. But I'd just be really careful not just to post exactly what it's spat out for you. I think Maddie went to a conference recently where, they're really talking about how AI is creating all of the video content and images. But again, I think just because of my experience with building a personal brand, I still think it's really important that you bring your face in and you're the one that does the videos. So it's understanding where it can support you in terms of that research, in terms of doing the groundwork. I think it can save a whole lot of time, and it can replace having a VA. I think still have VAs if you need them to, but there's a lot of work that it can do in that groundwork, but it's really important that you still are the human behind the brand.
I think it I've been guilty of this too, like you were saying, posting exactly what AI has said to post. Like if I see the text in those long hyphens or whatever, I'm like, okay, come on, that's like a bit lazy. At least take those out. And again, I've been guilty. Sometimes I've done that. We've all been there, but I agree with that. I think AI is so cool. I listened to another podcast recently, maybe Mel Robbins. They were doing something about they were talking about AI as well, and even the functionalities in ChatGPT, a lot of people aren't using the functions or the full potential that there is. I know me personally, I don't. I just like, hey, chat, can you help me with this, blah, blah, blah. And it's very basic. So I love those kind of points there. Maybe going to like when this entrepreneur or this business owner is growing their business, what are some other things when it comes to maybe website or when it comes to other strategies that they really need to focus on? Because I think like, yeah, social media is great. It's a great like we kind of have a free, like you were saying, free access to ads and this and that and like promoting the business. But what are some behind the scenes things that you see people kind of going wrong when it comes to maybe growing their business and wanting to scale it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it comes down to what you need in your business. Every business owner is so different. So it's important to sit down and say, hey, what are the tools that I'm needing in my business in order to automate, in order to make the sales process really easy for my customers, in order to maybe store information like a CRM, to send emails, and write down all of those elements because there's so many tools out there these days. I have chopped and changed quite a few times in the course of my business. And a lot of the time, you can either find one that does everything or find just a few and use a tool like Zapier to kind of connect everything together. I think another thing is to understand your skill set, or if you do have a budget, to get some help to set it up, because you can come up with some roadblocks there when it does come to the setup. There are some really simple tools that are really easy to use, like Stan. There's an online tool called Stan, which has very basic email marketing, but it allows you to connect your payment providers, have a calendar booking. You can sell digital products, host a course, sort of do everything in this one website, and you could get that up in a day if you wanted to. But having something like a software to support the back end is so important. I know when you start out in business, and especially coaches, I see this all the time, they think all they need is really like a calendar link and somebody can transfer money to them and, jump on a Zoom call. I think it looks a little bit more professional if we do have some sort of structure in the back end. And then a second thing that I would say is if you're wanting to grow, I would put in the groundwork at the start because you're going to come up with so many issues when you do get to that point of growth. So coming back to your question, I think the basics that you need as a business owner is definitely an email list, somewhere to host your emails. Email marketing will never go away. I think just the same as social media, it's so important to be growing that in the background and just building your community on there. And then having some sort of hosting space for whatever your product or service looks like. So if you're someone that offers coaching, well, how do you deliver the program to your clients? How do you take payment? How do you get them to book in for a call with you? Think about what that process looks like so that you can actually curate an experience for your clients that feels really professional. The last one that I just wanted to add there is a domain. I think that domains aren't that expensive, and it just takes your email address to another level if you have your domain as your email, not just at gmail.com. That's probably something that I would say from the get-go if you're wanting to be taken seriously. I know it sounds basic, but it just kind of adds that extra level of professionalism and takes your business from a hobby to a business really quickly.
Yeah, no, those are some great points. Where I would like to go maybe is if somebody out there right now is at the idea stage, they have an idea of something and they just can't figure out where to start, because I think it can be complicated. If somebody is creating, let's say, an e-commerce brand, or, they're creating something that they want to sell or whatever it might be, like, I can understand how it can be daunting. Like, you have 20 million different things that you have to think of. But like we were saying, like, unless you have gone for the training in this, even then, sometimes you don't really learn a whole lot when it comes to like starting something, and it can be scary to start something. What is a piece of advice that you would give that person listening where they're at the idea, they just don't have the idea of where to start? Maybe they're nervous to start. What's a piece of advice that you have for that person?
So the first thing that I would say is take the pressure off yourself. I think a lot of people go into launching a business and set themselves really high expectations of having a 5-figure launch and just doing really well off the bat. I'm a huge believer and a huge fan of having what's called a soft launch. So putting your product or offer out there and seeing what the audience does. So starting small and growing from there. The biggest thing that stops people from starting a business is that fear or that perfectionism that just puts a massive wall between them and starting. I'm a massive believer in taking action. So I would just put your idea out there. Now, it is hard if you're wanting to launch a product. Obviously, inventory, you need to actually go ahead and do the research. It's very expensive to start a product. But if it's a service, put feelers out there. Do a pilot round. Start building an audience. Start actually understanding your audience and what they want to see if your offer is going to work. Like, there's no harm in actually starting. In fact, you're going to learn a whole lot more and you're going to get to where you're wanting to go a lot faster than if you just ponder this idea and let it mull in the back of your head. I would start small, and I know we've spoken a lot about a lot of things on the podcast, and I'm hoping that it's not feeling overwhelming for people, because simple is best when starting, and then building from there is where to go. So start with an Instagram account, start understanding Instagram and what content is going to start growing your followers, nurturing them and converting them, and start to think about your offer and does it match the audience? Can we start posting about it? Can we put some feelers out there? Can we do some outreach to people, friends and family, to see if there's anyone that they know that might want to do a trial round of your offer, that you could offer half price to see, if you're wanting to get into coaching, for example, why not see if you can test your offer with 5 different people at 50% off, get some really good feedback from them. Sometimes you can use that as reviews, and that can just help get the ball rolling and go from there. Like, you don't need to have all your ducks in order to actually start the business and launch it off a huge platform. I would go the other way and do more of a soft launch and work out what's working and tweak what's not.
I love that. That's exactly what I did with Radiant Voices Media is soft launch. I made like a story, just a feeler, like you were saying, to people that I knew from other circles, basically reached out and wanted help with their podcast. Like it was kind of, again, like you were saying, I think for me, I relate to that because when I launched, I knew that I wasn't going to make 6 figures or, be like the biggest podcast production company or whatever, right? Like, I think that's probably what a lot of people struggle with is the fear of failure. Like they don't want to launch something, talk about it, only get maybe one client and only in quotation marks. Cause I think one client is one client. It's
amazing.
Great.
You can get 1, you can get 2.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Get 2, you can get 4.
Exactly. And that's where people, I think, go wrong personally when I think about it is they might think they need to get all of these clients just to prove to others that they're successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think success is different to everybody, and it's very hard, I think, to launch something and not be in that mindset because we all are looking for success, and success means something different. When it comes to business, when it comes to maybe your personal brand, when it comes to, what you educate others with success and on success, what do you think success in the space of business is?
I love that question because I was speaking to some clients recently and just around what's your big why for coming into business. And it was actually on I ran a workshop last week and not one of them came to me and said for money, which is, I didn't expect them to in a way, but the number one thing that people said was freedom. And a lot of people go into business and freedom is their number one thing. I know for me, freedom is like one of my top values, and everything that I do encompasses freedom in my life and also in business. And it's so important to actually understand what your big why is and make sure that your business is built to support that. If your why is freedom, if that's what you see as success in business, there is no point building a business that makes you work 24/7 and grind really hard with no plan to get out of that. So it's important you understand your offers, you understand your pricing, you understand how many hours you're wanting to work per week so that you can successfully build a business and the foundations that get you to where your ideal success is. So I know for me, like I have a 1-year-old daughter, and it is so important for me that I can spend time with her. She's in care 2.5 days a week, and I don't want her. That's my max. Like until she goes to primary school, that is like I want to be with her for those other 2.5 days. And I've managed to continue my business at the revenue level, even a little bit more than prior because of how I've built the back end. And in business particularly, there's no ceiling on what that revenue level is. It just comes down to how you structure your offers and how you build out everything. So when it comes to success in business, it's really important you understand what that looks like. If money is your number one thing, that's absolutely fine. I'm all for making money. I love making money. But you need to restructure or structure everything so that it can support those levels as well.
All right, I want to talk to you about sunglasses made for runners by runners. That's why I wear Your Run sunglasses. Lightweight, zero bounce, and they stay locked in even when you are sweating through speed sessions, long runs, out in the sun, whatever it might be. They are stylish enough for daily wear, durable enough for race day, and just the perfect combo. Honestly, I love brands that get the sport, get the grind, and support the running community, not just the podium finishers. If you're serious about your run gear and want shades that perform as hard as you, go check out Your Run. Use my code Jordan10 to save some money and get yourself some stylish sunnies that actually perform and look good. Run smart, stay protected, look good doing it with Your Run sunnies. When it comes to side hustles, like you mentioned an interesting point there, when it comes to side hustles and burnout, because I think another hard thing for people that might want to start something is I can totally understand, like, you know, if you have other responsibility, you can't exactly drop your job or, you know, you can't exactly maybe even go down part-time or whatever in the beginning. When it comes to burnout, does burnout actually exist? And B, how do you think somebody should structure a side hustle? You know, of course, I think it's going to look different for everybody, basically. But I think, too, it's hard because you don't want to be working 24/7. Yeah, you need to work hard behind the scenes if you want the side hustle to be, you know, a normal job eventually. But where do you educate people in that space?
Yeah, and I suppose everyone's idea on this is going to look a bit different. But if I was wanting to start a side hustle and I was working a full-time job, the first thing I would look at is, in my personal life, were there any areas that I could cut back on expenses for, let's say, 6 months? And I would immediately cut back on those expenses in my personal life so that I could use that as a budget to start my side hustle. And then I would look at, hey, is there any way that I could reduce my hours in my job with the reduction of those expenses? So perhaps you're only working 3 days a week and you can actually spend those 2 days a week on your side hustle. If you're working full-time in your job and doing your side hustle on the side, that's fine if you've got a plan to get out in the end. But what I see happen to so many people is they don't have any plan. And all of a sudden, 2, 3, 4 years have gone by and they're still working full-time. They're still working full-time in their side hustle and they haven't really got anywhere. And usually the reason for that is because they will hit a ceiling on their side hustle where perhaps they're looking for clients and they can't book them in the day because they're working their full-time job, or they're so exhausted that they don't send out that marketing email or they don't create that content. So you're going to hit a level where you actually do hit burnout and you can't come back from there, or you can't push through that level. I know there's that saying we all have the same hours in the day. We don't, but you will get capped. Like, you need sleep, you need to look after your health, especially in business and in the service-based industry. You are your product. So if you're not taking care of yourself, no one's going to work with you. You're not going to have the mental capacity to actually create something that is good enough for your business. So it's really important that you have a look at things from a bird's eye view. You go into it with a plan and you have a plan to actually move your job away and get rid of that and move into the side hustle. So I think there's a little bit of sacrifice that you need to do, but I would personally sacrifice things in my personal life than my health or my time, because both of those are much more important than, you know, the $200 that I spend on a new outfit or something.
Yeah. No, I love that, really. Like, that's something that I never thought of. You know, if you can sacrifice, like you were saying, maybe your spending budget on clothing, or, you know, some people have a spending budget, like they like to go out to eat all the time. Even if you cut that by half, you know what I mean? Like, and invest that. And I think too, that might be where people struggle, is investing in themselves, like thinking of it that way, because I don't know, I think that's quite powerful to me personally. Like, the thought of investing in yourself, like, yeah, it can be scary, but it also is quite empowering in a sense. And maybe that's something that can get somebody through it, really. What are you excited about in the business entrepreneurial space, social media? What's kind of trending right now? Where do you think things are going? What are you excited about in that space?
Yeah, I think what I'm excited about and what I get excited about in business is actually seeing so many more people find it easier to step into this online space. I know we've spoken about competition, but I don't really see competition as competition. I think if you like lean into your business and stand behind who you are and what your idea is, and not focus on what everybody else is doing, because you don't want the same business as them. The only competition you're going to have is yourself, really. I know that sounds so cliche, but I'm excited to actually see so many other people, especially as I've become a mum, like helping other mums have a business so that they can stay at home with their little one. Like, that just makes me so happy to do. But also other people that want to stay at home, want to travel the world, want to spend more time with their family or their mum and dad who perhaps are getting older and need more support, or they're just wanting to actually live a life. Like, this life is pretty good. You may as well be living it. I don't want to be working a 9 to 5 that just feels boring and has no end goal. I'm excited with just everything that's happening in the online space and how easy it is to step into that world.
Yeah. Do you think because I think, like, what also has come up on the podcast in the past is the difference between an introvert and extrovert. You know, we've talked about this earlier on, like, you need to be out there, make opportunities for yourself in a sense as well. And I can understand for some people that might seem a bit daunting. You know, I don't know that, you know, I think classically in the past, when you thought about an entrepreneur, you thought they were this extroverted person who, you know, was the life of the party and out there all the time. But I don't know that that's true anymore. I think there are more reserved people out there that are creating some amazing things and that can create some amazing things. But, you know, for that person that might be a bit more quiet, or might be on the shy side, or, you know, might find creating opportunity stressful, how would that kind of person go out and create some opportunity?
First of all, I think I'm a bit of an introvert. So I know people find that quite funny to hear, because I'm, you know, showing my face on camera. I've got a podcast. I run a business. I'm very forward facing. I don't even think about the people that are watching me. I find it sounds crazy, but I look at my podcast stats and I'm like, it's crazy to think that this many people listen to the podcast. I don't even think that there's people. And I've always kind of lived that way, even when I grew my social media following, you know, 10, 15 years ago. I just sort of separated myself from the fact that there's people watching and this is what I do. And having that really clear detachment from worrying about what people think has helped me move forward and step into something a lot more confidently. I talk to a lot of my clients about detaching from certain situations and having what I would call like a balanced energy through things. So actually being able to neutralize your energy through the highs and the lows, because if you can't get back up from the low, it's going to be really hard to continue forward in business. And I think it comes the same when we're thinking about actually showing up and being confident and showing yourself on camera. A lot of the time, people don't care what you're doing. I'm sorry, but they don't. Like, they will probably skip straight past your stories if they don't want to listen to them. If they're sharing them and making fun of you, like, it's more of a them problem than a you problem. I do think it comes down to mindset. So if you are someone that struggles with this mindset, there's so many great books out there. There's so many great podcasts. There's coaches if you're wanting to work with someone. mindset is probably the biggest thing when it comes to a successful business owner and a not successful business owner. I think about some of my clients that could be so much more successful, but they cockblock themselves all the time. They tell themselves, they'll post something and it will flop and they'll let that affect the rest of their week, or they'll launch something and they won't get any sales, and so they'll stop posting about that product or service. Like, that's not going to get you anywhere. It is so important to work on your mindset, and especially in the early days when you are needing to show up online, you are needing to have that confidence within yourself, actually being able to detach yourself from the external factors that perhaps are standing in your way is so important. Me being an introvert, I think what helped me, and this is something that I'm not saying go out and do it because I wouldn't recommend it, but when I competed and did the fitness competitions, as much as I would never do it again because it wasn't great for my hormones or my body image issues, the one thing that it taught me was discipline and confidence. If I can stand up on stage in a tiny bikini, I can show my face on my camera. So doing things like, I don't know, even stepping foot in a gym and like doing the hard thing is going to build up over time. So if you're given opportunities to do something hard, do them, because it's going to just build that resilience in you.
I love that. Like that last point, especially building the resilience. Because I think back to this podcast, it's been going on for 5 years now. And I think back to 5 years ago, like I always have my list of questions, but I very rarely these days actually refer to them anymore. I remember 5 years ago, like I had my questions out in front of me, literally that. And like I would be so nervous. But I think one of the main reasons why I started this podcast was to get a bit more confidence speaking to other people. I'm a physio by trade, and I knew like when I started this podcast, I was going through uni at that point, and I knew I would have to talk to people on the daily, basically throughout my career. So, if I'm a classically an introvert as well. If I can't really do that, then I'm not really going to have a successful career. So I love that, like build resilience, because now like I don't even really get anxious meeting guests anymore. And I think it's just because I've done over 200 episodes and like it's all repetition, it's all habit basically. And I think that's anything in life really. The more you do something, the more it's like, and like I think too, not caring what others think. I love that point as well, because it can be hard. And I think too, you don't get to that stage unless you've built that repetition. I every now and then still catch myself. I'm like, oh, like, what if somebody like thinks this if I post this or that, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm like, oh, at the end of the day, like you're saying, half of the people don't even care. They probably won't even watch the reel. And the people that do care, like, even if it just reaches one person, I'm like, that's successful, I guess, in my books as well. Maybe if we go back to this entire podcast to the person listening today, what are 3 key pieces of advice that you want to leave them with, basically?
When you said habits before, I loved that, because I think for any business owner listening, the biggest thing, which is so not strategic, that you can do right now is be consistent and build out habits that are going to support your goals. So if your goals are to increase revenue in your business, what are some daily, weekly, and monthly habits that you can start doing today that helps you bring in more revenue? So things like simply creating a piece of content every single day, talking about your offers every single day. Perhaps it's doing some kind of money mindset thing, because you do have those blocks. So it's reading 10 books of a money book every single day. Like breaking down the big goal into small, consistent habits will get you there. So consistency would be one of the lessons, or one of the takeaways that I would say. Number 2 would be to understand your own business funnel or own personal customer journey that your clients go through, and really audit your business right now to see which areas are strong and which areas could do some work or could use some help, because that will really help with whatever it is that you're doing as well. And number 3 is just take any opportunity. Like be a yes person. Even if the opportunity feels small, it could open that door that you need. When you reached out to me to do this podcast, we'd never met before. I could have easily said no. I could have easily left you on, read in my inbox.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important to say yes. And what the worst thing that's going to happen is you don't get anything out of it. Oh, I bet you'll get something out of it. You'll learn something. You'll learn that you don't want to do podcasts again or do something. But just say yes to every small opportunity, because it could be that opportunity that gives you a bigger break or introduces you to a new client or allows you to learn something new in your business or in your personal life.
Yeah. No, I love those. Like, I think another podcast that I love is the Skinny Confidential, him and her
Yes.
podcast. And like, they speak to that all the time. They say, take every opportunity. What you said in the past as well, like launch something. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like, you can refine it down the road, but as long as you get something out there, like, I think that's the first step, and that's the most scary step, really.
100%. It is the scariest because
Yeah.
you think the whole world is watching you.
Mm.
It's probably 3 people that are watching
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Like, I hate to break it to you, but very rarely are you going to be like Nike from day one. You know what I mean?
And people put that pressure on themselves, and it's very rare you're going to get that point. But if you don't launch anything, you've got no data to look at. You've got nothing to refine. You've got no opportunity that somebody's going to purchase from you, and you're just going to be thinking about this idea or this offer for the next month, 2, 3, 5 months. Like, I think taking that massive imperfect action, again, as cliche as it sounds, like, get good at it. Get good at taking messy action. That's when you're going to be successful.
And Ruby, where can people listen to your podcast? Drop the name. Where can people work with you? And that'll be in the show note for you listening right now. You can definitely check that out.
Yeah. Well, my podcast is Marketing and Margaritas, and I run it with my co-host, Maddie. We have known each other since my influencer days. I was a client of hers back then when she was in marketing, and we both started our business at the same time. So she works in a marketing agency, and I am a business and marketing coach. So that's Marketing and Margaritas. Otherwise, you can find me at ruby.consultants on Instagram, and all of my links and everything are over there.
Amazing. And once again, that'll be in the show notes for you listening right now. You can definitely reach out to Ruby if you need. But thank you so much for coming on, for taking this opportunity. Like I was saying, I think the person listening, there's plenty that they can get out of today's episode. And I do think a lot of people will get a lot out of today's episode, because I think again, like, there's so much to think about when it comes to maybe starting a business. Maybe somebody listening right now has had a business for years, and, they're trying to get on board with the social media, influx. And I think, like, there's a lot that they can take from today's episode, because it can be daunting, really.
Social media, anything can be daunting if you're not doing it. I think a lot of people get nervous to start because they think that they've missed the boat. You haven't missed the boat. Like, you're going to miss the boat if you don't get on social media, but just start, refine, and rework it from there.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
This episode is brought to you by the Kova House, the running apparel brand built for runners who care about culture, community, and staying true to running. Kova House is more than gear, it's a movement. And we're kicking off our very first community group run on January 7th. If you want to be part of this running crew that values connection, culture, and showing up, RSVP now and join the Kova House community here in Adelaide. Stay true, stay moving with the Kova House.